why final expense? We'll talk about what final expense is here in a moment. But I want to ask David, if David, you could kind of tell us briefly about your background and length in the business, and then help the audience understand, thinking and being reminded that they're newer or aspiring, brand new. What is it about final expense that attracted you to the business, and why did you decide to sell it?
Okay, well, just a little background on me. Been in the business a long time. I started out with a company doing more of the life insurance. It wasn't designated final expense, and we'll get into what final expense is on this call. But it was designated more to life insurance. I was selling some cancer policies, critical illness, a few of those. I had my life and my health license. Then I went from there over to what I call, that's going to be my job then, was to go in and talk to business owners, try to set them up, their entire crew, their employees, on a cafeteria plan. Now, that's totally different. That's Section 125. But anyway, you need to know that if you're doing that. But you don't have to know that here. So then I was doing well there. But I sold a few individual policies while I worked for that company, a few whole lives. And man, I saw what I made on. And I was like, wow, I'm used to getting 20 to 30%. And I think that's great because of the volume. That's the key to that, is volume. Here, it doesn't take near as much volume to make the same amount of money or more. And then after that, I transferred into final expense. I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I worked with a couple MLMs, unfortunately. Was doing well, very well, but just noticed the amount of the percentage of pay I was leaving on the table. And I guess that's kind of, in a nutshell, what's led me to what I do now. And as David said, I am the coach, mentor for the face-to-face broker program here at Duford Insurance Group. And in a nutshell, what we're doing is bringing the old school back. That's my opinion, and Dave can elaborate on that.
Hey, I like that setup. The old school is like your carriers actually cared about you, and your companies cared about you and trained you and developed you and worked a relationship with the idea that you'd be selling for the agency long term. That whole real quick, a little side note here. The business model of insurance used to be you were a company man. You used to work for one company. This is back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then, like a lot of businesses, I think of like the car business, there was a big push to basically reduce legacy costs, retirement, pension plans, et cetera. So a lot of these insurance companies got the idea of basically not having W-2 employees, but then turning them into 1099s, but also embracing the more competitive, capitalistic environment that we were in now, that back then and now, which is embracing the independent model. So all these carriers, inadvertently, in an attempt to be more competitive, to get rid of costs associated with running their business model, it upended the usual relationship and career focus long term that a lot of these carriers had with their agents, and it turned it into this kind of MLM model that's so familiar. And we can get into that as well. But it really started with A.L. Williams back in the 80s, which turned into, they really took the whole MLM mindset and transitioned it into the keys are over there. Turned it into the model that we see, and it's so prevalent across the board with many of these mega organizations that recruit anybody with the pulse. But all the while, what has been lost in this process is the old school way of training agents one-on-one, developing them into top producers. And we're super stoked, David and I and the whole team, that we've really gone back to the old way, which is the good way, which is taking agents and training them to be top producers, which is again is our sales pitch to agents now is like, hey, if you think training's important, we're all in one-on-one to do that.